Archaeology's greatest lie? That Egypt began with a single battle. The Narmer Palette in Cairo Museum shows the first pharaoh smashing an enemy, unifying the two lands. We call it the dawn of dynasty. I call it a down payment. The palette is propaganda. But what paid for that propaganda? Gold, and not from the eastern desert mines that would later fuel Egypt's empire. Older gold, different gold. My breakthrough came not from Egypt, but from the back rooms of the Petrie Museum in London, among Flinders. Petrie's finds from the predynastic site of Nakada was a collection of gold beads labelled proto-dynastic, unprovenanced. I was running a new, non-destructive elemental analysis on early gold artifacts when I found it. 3 beads from this lot had a unique platinum group metal signature found nowhere in Egypt's known ancient mining regions. The signature matched alluvial gold from the Wadi Hammamat, but with a twist. This gold had been through a primitive refining process that concentrated the platinum. The technology for that didn't exist in pre-dynastic times, unless I cross-referenced excavation reports. In the 1990s, a French team found a small, burned administrative building at Hierakonpolis, Narmer's early power base. Among the debris was a mud jar ceiling stamped with a serech, Narmer's palace facade symbol. The report mentioned carbonized papyrus fragments, unreadable. But new multispectral imaging can read the unreadable. I got permission to scan the fragments. What emerged wasn't a tax record, it was a security protocol. The unification gold is sealed at the fork where the two lands kiss, beneath the double crown's first shadow. Guarded by the silent watchers. The key is in the king's own hand. The fork where the two lands kiss. Egyptologists know the phrase. It referred to the original Nile bifurcation point near modern-day Cairo, where the river historically split into multiple branches before entering the delta. In Narmer's time, this wasn't just geography. It was the literal junction of Upper and Lower Egypt. The hunt for Narmer's $95 million dynasty-founding gold reserve had begun with 3 anomalous beads and a burned security memo. Clue 1. The fork that moved. The Nile's course has shifted over 5,000 years. The fork Narmer knew is now 15 kilometers west of the modern river, buried under centuries of silt and urban sprawl. Using historical floodplain maps and core samples from geological surveys, I pinpointed the ancient riverbed junction. Ground-penetrating radar revealed an anomaly, a rectangular structure of mud brick and stone at 8 meters depth, precisely at the confluence point. Not a tomb. The orientation was wrong. This was a strong room. But we couldn't excavate. The site is beneath a densely populated Cairo suburb. The clue said, beneath the double crown's first shadow. The pashent, the double crown of unification, was first worn by Narmer. Its shadow at the fork, perhaps a sundial alignment. Ancient Egyptian timekeeping used obelisks and shadow lengths. If Narmer erected a marker here, there was no record. But the silent watchers might be. Clue 2. The silent watchers. Pre-dynastic Egyptian shrines often had animal totems as guardians. At the unification fork, the guardians would be the symbols of both lands. The vulture, Nekbet, of Upper Egypt, and the cobra, Wadjet, of Lower Egypt. Searching through early dynastic votive offerings in museum storage, I found a pair of green schist statues from Hierakonpolis. A vulture and a cobra, each about 30 centimeters tall. Their provenance was vague. Found near the temple enclosure. But their bases were unusual, not flat, but with copper fittings. I analyzed the fittings. They contained the same rare platinum signature as the gold beads. These weren't just votives, they were keys. But how? The clue said, the key is in the king's own hand. I examined every early statue of Narmer. On the famous small ivory statue in the British Museum, Narmer holds a mace in his right hand. But on a lesser-known slate fragment in Cairo, he holds something else. A cylindrical object. A rod? A scepter? Or a measuring rod? Clue 3. The king's measure. Early Egyptian cubits were based on the pharaoh's forearm. Narmer's would have been about 52.5 centimeters. The copper fittings on the animal statues had internal diameters of exactly 52.5 mm, not a rod, a socket. The statues weren't standalone, they were capstones. They fit onto pillars. I went back to the GPR data from the fork site. At the four corners of the buried structure, there were stone foundations, pillar bases. If I placed the vulture statue on the southwest pillar, Upper Egypt's direction, and the cobra on the northeast pillar, Lower Egypt's direction, what would happen? Perhaps a shadow alignment. I created a 3D model of the site with the statues in place, calculating the sun's position at the summer solstice in 3100 BC. At solar noon, the vulture's shadow would point directly at the cobra, and where their shadow lines crossed, right at the center of the buried structure. That crossing point gave us exact coordinates. Through negotiation with Egyptian authorities and using a neighboring basement for access, we were able to drill a small, angled borehole from 100 meters away, using endoscopic cameras. Clue 4. The Unification Vault. The camera revealed a chamber lined with white limestone, unheard of for predynastic construction. And it glittered. The room was small but packed. Gold bars in the earliest Egyptian form, not ingots, but ring-shaped gold, Daban rings, stacked on wooden dowels that had long since collapsed into gold-dusted piles, hundreds of them. But more astonishing were the artifacts. A life-sized gold falcon with obsidian eyes, the god Horus, Narmer's patron. Gold mace heads the size of grapefruits, one shaped like a papyrus cluster, Lower Egypt, one like a lotus, Upper Egypt. Gold sheaths for the ceremonial flint knives used in the unification ritual, and at the center, on a limestone altar, the original palette. Not the green schist one in Cairo. This was a solid gold palette, smaller but identical in design, showing Narmer's victory. With it lay a gold cylinder seal, the actual seal used to stamp the mud ceiling I'd found. This was no mere treasury. This was a foundation deposit on a national scale, the literal gold standard against which the Egyptian state was measured. Narmer didn't just conquer and declare unity, he capitalized it. This gold was the physical backing of his new kingdom's legitimacy. The Golden Constitution. The Supreme Council of Antiquities engineered a complex extraction, stabilizing the entire neighborhood above. Each ring of gold was individually documented, over 2,300 of them. The valuation had to account for something beyond weight, provenance value. This wasn't just gold, it was the first state treasury in human history. Gold Daban rings, 2,300 plus, 1.2 metric tons of high-purity gold. Bullion value, $70 million. Gold falcon and mace heads, unparalleled early Egyptian goldsmithing. $15 million gold palette and seal, the founding documents of civilization, in precious metal. $10 million. Total, $95 million. A figure that speaks more to cultural pricelessness than market price. The discovery rewrote everything. Egypt didn't emerge slowly. It was instantiated, fully formed, with a centralized treasury from day one. Narmer was less a warrior king than a CEO pharaoh, securing his nation's assets before announcing its existence. The gold now has its own gallery in the Grand Egyptian Museum, placed symbolically between the predynastic and dynastic exhibits. The gold palette sits beside its schist cousin, the original and the propaganda. For me, the true treasure was understanding the birth of the state as a financial instrument. Before laws, before pyramids, before gods even, there was gold in a vault under the river fork. The first pharaoh didn't just wear the double crown, he collateralized it. And for 5,000 years, that collateral sat silently, waiting for us to understand that the original Egyptian miracle wasn't architectural or artistic, it was accounting,